Welcome to the Present Fathers Podcast. This is the show that focuses on climbing the mountain of fatherhood together. We believe that dads matter. That's why this show is for you. So gear up, dads. Get ready. It's time to start climbing. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Present Fathers Podcast. Tonight our guest is Rob Kenney, better known as DadHowDoI. Rob, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, George. I'm good.
Awesome. Well, we are super pumped to talk with you and learn a little bit about how you got your channel going and all the great things you're doing with that, and talk about fatherhood and a bunch of other things. But let me do a quick little bio about you so that our viewers can level set for the few people who may not be subscribed to you yet. But Rob is a dad of two. He's raised two adult children, and they still talk. He makes how-to videos on YouTube. And he does his best to provide useful, practical content for basic tasks that everyone should know how to do. So, Rob, why don't we go in and talk a little bit about why you started the channel in the first place, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables that went into why I started it. I thought of the channel a couple years before I actually put it up. Because my dad left when I was 14, and so there's a lot of little things that I didn't know how to do, and so I learned a lot of things the hard way. I learned how to tie a tie from my roommate when I was 19, and it's a little it's embarrassing to not know how to do certain things that people just expect you to know how to do. And so on my channel I put up a lot of things, and people will say, "Well, isn't this common sense?" Well, maybe you had a good guide that showed you how to do some of this stuff and helped you think through it. It's not common sense. Some of the stuff is not common sense for people, and stuff's a little intimidating. So I thought I'd put up a channel that where people could feel loved and come in and learn how to do something and walk away kind of feeling good and keep it wholesome. I don't swear. I try to just get you in and get you back out, and spend a little time together too. I tell dad jokes too. So, but anyway, the way it started was I thought of it a couple years prior to the pandemic. And then when the pandemic came, my daughter, who she's 31 now, she was 28 at the time. She kept on me, "Dad, you need to do this. You need to do it." And I'm like, so finally I ran out of excuses because I was locked up like everybody else, And so I went ahead and did How to Tie a Tie. That was my first video. And I started my channel on April 1st of 2020. Ironically enough, it was April Fool's Day that I started. And then my first upload was April 2nd because I was still trying to figure out how to upload. And then I did How to Shave on April 3rd. And then kind of started to get my feet under me and just trying to put out helpful content. And then it went viral in May of 2020. So about a month and a half later, I only had probably 8 videos probably up at the time, but people got wind of my backstory and understanding why I was doing it, was just trying to pass along some nuggets that I had to learn the hard way to try to give people a way to do things. I never want people to feel like this is how you do it. It's the only way to do it. If you don't have a way to iron your shirt, this has always worked for me, and I just trying to pass along a lot of little nuggets like that.
That's so great. I mean, it's just there's so little of that in our world today, it feels like, especially online. People love to hate online, and I was immediately just impressed with how it's just positive and wholesome, like you said, and it's helpful. So I guess my first question is, what was the type of knot that you tied? Was it double Windsor? Was it, which tie was the...
You didn't prepare me for this. I honestly don't even know.
We'll go back and watch it.
I've always used. It's my dad. That's what it is.
Nice. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
It was taught to me by a buddy, and he didn't tell me what it was.
Very cool.
George, you've got them all tied up in knots. What are you doing, man?
You do. That's embarrassing, George. How dare you do that to me?
I apologize. Well, maybe I can...
It's all good. It's good.
Talk into a less embarrassing topic, and then your channel has just a few more subscribers than ours, so we can kind of take the embarrassment on that one. So speaking of your massive subscriber count, over 4.5 million, how long then from that May point to it just blew up, and what was that whole experience like? Because I mean that is extremely rare that someone starts a channel and then a month later is totally exploded like that.
Yeah, it was terrifying, honestly. I thought I was going to have 30 or 40 subscribers. I thought I was just going to have a nice little neat community, and we were all going to grow together, and we were going to learn from each other. That's how I envisioned it. I had no idea it's going to be what it is. And so I've had to deal with that, because I consider myself an introvert. I've done everything I possibly can to avoid public speaking my whole life. And, God has a sense of humor. So here I am. So it's, it's crazy. And I have to give the glory to him, because it's funny, because I was interviewed by YouTube when my channel blew up, and I told them, they asked me how I did it, and I said, I believe God did it. And they looked at me like I had 3 eyes. So,
right. Well, I'm not surprised with that reaction, but from my point of view, it's a ministry in a way, right? You're able to give to so many and help so many with, just like you said, basic things. But if you weren't fortunate enough to have someone to teach you those things, then especially when you become an adult, it's kind of scary, right? Because people love to judge really quickly. And I wonder how many people have been spared some trouble simply from watching one of your videos. Probably a lot. But I think what
I hope so. I mean, that's my hope. So go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, the other thing is authenticity for you. It's just from the heart. Like you said, you weren't really setting out to make this, money-making scheme or whatever. It was just genuinely wanting to provide something helpful. That also seems to be rare in our society today. Do you think that that's the core reason why, you grew so fast, is just it was very authentic and real?
I think so. I try to talk to the camera like I'm talking to my own kids. So I have to live with that. So I have sponsorships all the time coming to me, wanting to sponsor my videos. And I have to turn 97% of them down, because it's like, that's not something I even had anyway, not to get off on something else, but I like to play blackjack. I'm just going to be candid with you. I like to play blackjack. So I'm not anti-gambling, even though I'm a man of faith. I do like to play blackjack, because I enjoy sitting around with my brothers at a blackjack table. Anyway, I had a gambling site reach out to me, and I'm like, I don't want to be a hypocrite, but the reality is I don't feel right sharing gambling on my site, so I just have to be really, really selective, I think. That's why I feel good about Firestone, because I've always had a good, Firestone has a good name. I feel good about having them kind of helping to support me, because I do need the support, especially since I'm turning down so many other opportunities to make money. But I got to be authentic, because I got to live with myself. I got to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah, I think that is very apparent. Like you said, how you talk to the camera like it's your own kids. I immediately picked up on that when I first discovered your videos. And yeah, can you talk a little bit about the different, you're starting to do more like, what is it? The Mondays you do things, Wednesdays you do things. Can you talk about those kind of differences?
Yeah, I'm grateful. So when my channel went viral, I told this to my daughter. I said, I don't want to just, be a trained monkey running around fixing things. I'd rather be able to share my heart with my internet kids, kind of like I shared my heart with my own kids, where I want to pass along wisdom. But I also didn't know how that was going to work. I tricked you. You want to learn how to tie a tie, and I'm going to preach at you. And so I was sensitive to the fact that I didn't want to take a left turn or a right turn to where people were offended by that, so to speak. But I'm grateful that once my channel went viral, I had a couple of videos where I was just able to kind of share my heart, just because I was like, I got to put up a video and I don't have anything. So I didn't want to have it to go 2 weeks before I actually put up a video, because I was having media requests, people wanting to publish a book. I was just bombarded with emails when my channel went viral. And so I was trying to do the best I could. Anyway, so I put up some stuff that kind of shared my heart. And so now I feel comfortable with it. And I've had people say, I thought I was going to learn how to use hand tools, and you're preaching at me. Bye. I was like, just leave. You don't have to take a parting shot at me. Well, I'm trying to, this is what I did as a dad. I tried to share my heart with my kids. I'm trying to share my heart with you, and most people appreciate it, I think. So I have Wisdom Wednesdays. So I do a quote, and then I talk about what that quote means to me, and I try to inspire people with those quotes. And I have Money Mondays too, where I've gotten into that recently, where I started sharing stuff about money, because people need, so many people that are illiterate with money. I'm not a genius with money, but I do know some things. Then I've learned some things the hard way too. And it's gotten so much easier to be able to invest. And so I want to kind of point people to that. So anyway, and now I also have, so I did Funny Friday for a time, and then now I just changed it to Feel Good Friday, because I can do Funny Friday still, because that makes you feel good with dad joke, or I can do where I told a story about this little kid that his mom wrote me. I don't know if you saw it last week, but
I did.
His mom wrote me, learned how to make scrambled eggs, and that really touched my heart. I was like, oh man. And he lost his dad in the service 3 years ago. That's, the fact that I'm able to touch lives like that, that's amazing. I'm so unworthy and blessed to have this platform that I have to pour into people. It's amazing.
I saw that video and I was holding back tears a little bit. It was so cool to see, because it's just, again, there's just so many things on the internet. They're either, they're a production. They're not, it's like Hollywood light, and so much of it just doesn't seem real. And, a video like that, you can't really mimic that. That's not something that someone could go create on their own. And I think it's pretty apparent why so many people love that, because it's just true. And it's nice to have something that basic and refreshing, I've been talking a lot. I know the other guys probably have some questions for you here, but
yeah, Rob. So here's my Dad, how do I question? How do you handle the negativity? Anyone with an audience is going to have some negativity. You mentioned it a little bit. Do you interact if someone trolls and says, "Oh, yeah, I don't want to hear you preach"? Do you talk to them about it? Do you ignore them? What's been your strategy to handle it in a good way?
Yeah, now that I'm over 3 years in, I've gotten better at it. It's hard, I'm like anybody else, where I can have 99 great comments, and then you have some troll wanting to just say something negative, and I'm human, so it hurts. But I know who I am as a man of God. This isn't who I am. I'm just trying to do what God would have me to do with the gifts that He's given me, and just trying to be faithful with that. And so if people have a problem with it, you know what? And boy, I've had people, surprisingly, if you've watched some of my videos, one on how to tape down a cord. Man, there's the tape experts out there. It's amazing how many of them there are.
Tape, please.
That's what one guy made that comment, and I said, boy, for real. I thought I was just trying to help some people. And the ironic thing is, I went out to a restaurant the other night with a couple of buddies that I used to work with, and there was a guy that taped down a cord, and it was awful. I mean, it was like we're snaking around and tape here, and it was just basically somebody, waiting for somebody to trip over it. I took a picture of it because I'm going to share that on my channel and say, this is
that's amazing.
Nice.
I love it. So I guess my question to you would be based off the channel. What's your favorite story from somebody that they've either shared or learned from you?
I don't know if there's a single story necessarily. There's been a lot of them where people say that it's therapeutic to just listen to me, and that caught me off guard, I guess, because I thought I was showing people how to tie a tie, and I've had people telling me they're crying watching me tie a tie. I didn't anticipate that in my ignorance. I thought I was just going to show you how to tie a tie, and I think it's just the people that maybe miss their dad or never had a dad or don't have a dad, never had a dad moment. Hearing that stuff really caught me off guard. And people, they'll put on my shaving video and just have it run in the background just to hear my voice. And so that kind of touches my heart. I'm like, I feel for them. I can kind of relate to it a little bit once they brought it up.
Yeah, I mean, fatherlessness is such a huge problem, and it's a wound that, you know, it can extend generations even. So I can only imagine, you know, getting those types of letters and knowing that you're able to kind of ease that pain a little bit is definitely a beautiful surprise from this, right?
Yeah, and
Kind of give
I
back.
think because I have some empathy, I think because understanding some of the pain, people have been through way more than I've ever been through. I went through something. We've all been through something. Sadly, and I think in our society too, we have a little bit of a victim mentality. So people people have been through nothing want to act like they've been through something to try to get try to help them get somewhere when it's just not beneficial. And for me, as a man of faith, I've been a believer for probably about 30 years, about the time my daughter was born. And I'm a little embarrassed to say it took me as long as it did to forgive my dad, because I was deep down waiting for him to actually ask for forgiveness. And if people are waiting for somebody to to ask for forgiveness, it may never happen. And meanwhile, your life is going by, right? And you're spending energy on something that is not worth your energy. And that was me. I was spending energy spinning that plate, and I've talked about that in my videos. It's not good for you. It's not healthy. And I've been forgiven much, and so I wish I would have done it sooner. And there was freedom for me on the other side. I think people, how can I forgive? Well, I'm here to tell you that on the other side of it, I wish I'd done it sooner, because boy, there's freedom for me that I didn't anticipate.
I'd like to dive into your childhood a little bit more, but I can just personally relate to what you just said very much. My dad and I were estranged for, I mean, we would talk every now and then, but it was basically a decade. And a lot of that was my own anger, a lot of it unjust. I won't tell you the whole story. It's a little messy. We actually did do an episode together on this podcast. I thought it was pretty awesome to be able to do that with my dad, on the other end of it. But it wasn't actually until I, like you said, kind of forgave first internally, right? And that I was then open to having genuine relationship again. And it was almost at that point that it was very rapid. It just like all of it went away. All that separation and all that distance just evaporated. And, we both just apologized. I'm so sorry that, things have been this way. And, our relationship has just been completely different since that moment. That was 7-8 years ago now that we kind of reconnected like that. So I'm literally a product of what you were just describing. The relationship I have with my dad today is exactly because of that, letting go of that anger and choosing forgiveness. Is just a powerful thing. And so I appreciate you being candid about your position as well in your own story there.
It was when I heard the quote that unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping it somehow hurts the other person when it's killing you. And that was me. And when I finally heard that, it really was an epiphany for me where, that's me. I need to quit drinking this poison. And so being able to let it go wasn't easy. It came through a lot of tears and a lot of praying. But boy, I'm so grateful that I was able to. And then he ended up asking for forgiveness before he passed.
Well, I had a good friend of mine tell me another phrase that I really enjoyed. It was, forgiveness is a gift, and it's a very hard gift to give for those who aren't willing to receive. And, that's a hard thing to understand, because you still harbor feelings, to whatever it is, a trauma or, a relationship or whatever the case may be. But I think the fact that you both, work through that's an amazing thing. You guys gave that gift, and that's the hardest thing to do, is start that process. And I think that's what a lot of people are afraid to do. So, there's men like you and like George who are willing to step up and say, hey, I did it, you can do it. I think that's very powerful for other people.
So Rob, can you go into a little bit more detail about, what happened with your dad? And
I go into it in my book. My parents started out really well. I'm from a Catholic family. I ended up rejecting that as I got older and went around and lived how I wanted to live. But anyway, so I'm one of 8 kids. The 6 older kids were born in Wichita, and then work dried up for my dad. My mom was one of 12 kids. And so I think she envisioned our family growing up amongst all the cousins and being this, just a big community. And so my dad, again, thinking of it from my dad's perspective now as an adult and having 6 kids, work's drying up. What am I going to do? I got to find a job because I got to pay for this, this troop that I have here, So he ended up moving us to New Orleans with the space program. And my mom didn't like that. Because she was getting uprooted from her deep roots in Kansas. And so he moved us there, and then we were there for a couple of years, and that's where I was born. And then my dad saw another opportunity up here in Everett, in just north of Seattle, where he moved us all up here. And then my younger sister was born up here. And so, and all that took a toll on my mom, and mental health wasn't great. There wasn't a whole lot of help for mental struggles. My mom struggled with anxiety and struggled with different things, and she was uprooted from her support group in Kansas. And so she started to kind of unravel a little bit. Again, I was pretty young at that time. And then going on into my 11, 12-year-old time, our house was super dysfunctional. And then my dad ended up getting custody of us, but I'm not sure he really wanted us, but he got custody of us because I think he felt that was the right thing to do. And my mom was considered an unfit mother, and so she wasn't allowed to come around the house. And my dad would load us up with groceries and leave for a week or 2 at a time with me and the younger siblings. He'd be in big trouble these days, but at the time it was the 70s, and so he got away with it. But so that was tough, so there was already some hard feelings towards my dad. And then finally he came home one day and said he was done raising kids. And he said the older kids are going to have to go live with the younger kids are going to have to live with the older kids, or they're going to foster care. And I always thought that was an idle threat, but my brother that I ended up living with, he said, no, that was not an idle threat. Dad was, if we wouldn't have taken you, you would have gone to foster care. So, like I've shared earlier off air, there's memes going around saying my dad abandoned me. I wouldn't use the word abandoned, but he did reject me, so it's pretty, when I kind of relive it and I think, wow, it was a pretty blatant rejection that he just didn't want me. And that's pretty hard, that's pretty hurtful if I allow myself to go there. And I can't, though, because I've forgiven him for it. But anyway, so I ended up living with my brother, who was 9 years older than me. He was 23. I was 14 when my dad did that. And so I lived with him and my brother Rick and his wife Karen, and they were newlyweds. They'd only been married for a couple months when I went to live with them, and we lived in an 8x35 trailer. I always thought it was a mobile home, but it was a trailer. My brother built a shelf, put up a bed in the back of the trailer, and that's where I slept, and lived with them for a couple of years. It was tough on everybody. It was hard for them to suddenly have a 14-year-old kid going through puberty. And it was hard for me to live in such tight quarters with my brother and his wife. And so it was hard. We did that for a couple of years, and then they moved out to Enumclaw, and I wanted to graduate from high school from my same high school in Bellevue, Sammamish. And I ended up living with my brother, Don, who's a couple of years older than me. We got an apartment, and I lived with him for my senior year.
How did you make ends meet? Did you work a job and everything? And
I did. My dad gave us $200 a month, I think is what I ended up getting. $200 a month, which, you can't, even then you couldn't live off $200 a month. I needed to eat, that's how much I ate a month. So, so I played football my senior year, and then I wanted to play basketball, but I just couldn't afford it. I went out for the team, and a week later I just told the coach, I got to work. I can't keep this up. And so that's unfortunate. There's some things that I missed out on, but it also, helped me grow in a lot of ways, having to take on that responsibility.
Yeah. So you all had to grow up real quick. And my heart kind of breaks hearing that story. It's just, like you said, the rejection. I can't even imagine that pain. Like, how long did it take you to even be at a place where you felt you could even attempt forgiveness? I would imagine that was a pretty heavy thing to carry.
It was, yeah. So again, I share it in my book. I called it coughing up hairballs with my brother. My brother Rick. It took me a long time to cough it up and get it out. I would be sobbing. I still, right in this room over here, sitting over there, talking to him on the phone for a couple hours, just crying. Like, I can't let this go. This is just too hard. And because my brother Rick wanted to honor my dad on Father's Day. And I'm like, Father's Day is my day with my kids. It's not about that guy. I can't bring myself to honor him after what he did to me. And so it took a lot to get to the point to where I was able to let him go. But it's good now. God is good, and I'm in a great place now.
And I think you'd alluded to it earlier. You did have a chance to kind of reconcile with him, right? Or
I did. Yeah, we
reconnect.
Yeah, sadly, I think our relationship was always still kind of superficial, and I think that was his choice. He lived, he kept his distance, where he lived 5 hours away, and he had married my stepmom, who we never really got along with, too. And so it was finally my brother Rick, the one I went to live with. My brother Rick told my dad, "Hey, you need to ask your kids for forgiveness and tell them you love them, because I'm not sure they know." And my dad kind of, I don't know, in his own mind, maybe had kind of moved on, like, oh, that's already water under the bridge. Well, yeah, but you didn't really do what you needed to do to get to the point where it was water under the bridge. You just kind of swept it under the rug. And so he finally did. We were out on a boat and we were out fishing, and he asked me if I'd forgive him. And I said, "Dad, I just want you to understand, I was a 14-year-old boy. Really hard time to have a dad reject you when you're going through puberty. You think you're a pervert because you're looking at girls differently. You got all kinds of things going through your head." I said, that was a tough time for me. But I forgive you. I said, I've already forgiven you. I already forgave you a few years ago, Dad. So, and plus he was a weak man by that time. He was in his mid 80s. And so, if he is a younger man where he did what he did to me, I might try to take a pound of flesh, but he was pretty weak. So I was kind of looking through him as he was telling me that.
Wow, it seems like you've grown so much, and I kind of want to shift gears here a little bit, because hearing this story and hearing what you've had to learn the hard way, I feel like reading your book and watching your videos, I've seen that you're kind of a big do-it-yourselfer. You love to figure out things. You love to find a challenge and grow from it and learn, and then just produce something great. And I think that's kind of the heart of what is behind your channel, to me personally. And so I'm a big do-it-yourselfer myself, or a DIYer as they call us. And my main question was, can you discuss like the significant life lessons or values that you learned through like your do-it-yourself experiences, and how they translate to your role as a father?
Yeah, I think a lot of the DIY, and I shared this in my book. Keep plugging my book here, shamelessly.
It's a good book.
Plug away, Rob. That's what this is for.
I really got, like, I got into DIY early on because I had to learn how to build a fence, because I was kind of thrown into it and had to. Yikes! I don't know how to build a fence. Our neighbor's dog knocked down our fence, and he didn't know how to build a fence. So I was like, I got to figure this out then. And so I called my brother, Rick was a journeyman cabinet maker. So I learned a lot of things from him, and he was very good at helping me understand that, you're not as long as you're careful, you're not going to do anything terrible that you can't work your way out of. You just got to be smart as you go along. And so I loved being able to do DIY right along with my kids. I think it's so important to do it with your kids and have them learn. Instead, it's so much easier if I just did it myself. And I could get it done way faster, but I'm not helping my kids learn how to problem solve, I think. And so I think it's helpful to get them included, you know, and it's interesting because now my internet kids, it's very much the same way. I have 1,000,001 things I got to do around my house still. And sometimes I just go, I just got to get it done. I don't have time to videotape it and edit it and put it up on my channel. I'm just going to do it. You know, so there's so many projects I've done probably in the last 2 months that I haven't shared just because I don't have the bandwidth, you know. But anyway, all that to say, when you're raising kids, I think it's so important because it's kind of like life. It's walking them through, hey, and plus you get to spend a little time together, and you get to, you know, sadly it turns into, you know, there's the whole joke about who's holding the flashlight, and, you know, my dad, these were screaming matches and everything. I think part of it is because a lot of guys, you know, we're kind of expected to know how to do things. And so I think in our frustration, we're already a little tense because we don't know what we're doing. And then our kids not holding the flashlight properly. And then, can't you hold the flashlight properly? And really deep down, we're going, why can't I figure this out? So I think there's a little bit of that built up.
That's such a good point. So it's really not about the fence at all or fixing. It's about the process and about learning from that. And that sense of competence and achievement is incredible. I know for me personally, I had this philosophy for years that it's just easier to just buy a new one. So why would I fix it if I can just get it from the store, you know? And that worked for me for years. And now I'm realizing when I have a son, that's a terrible philosophy because I don't know how to fix anything now because I just bought it for years. And so this is my moment to realize, okay, it's time to get dirty with my hands and really learn how to do this stuff. So when it comes to DIY, it sounds like your channel, your digital creation is DIY as well. So that's really cool. So will you ever bring on a production team of other people to help, or do you think it's part of the ethos of the channel to do it yourself?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's been talk of a TV show for a while. We've had a couple of production companies wanting to do something where it would elaborate a little bit more, where I'd bring on experts and they, you know, because I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I know how to do just about anything, but not anything great. So, you know, people say, hey, Dad, show me how to rewire my house. Not going to show you that. I might show you how to change a plug.
Yourself.
You know,
that's I tell my wife is I'll go figure out almost anything, but when it comes to electrical sockets and stuff, I'm like, you can literally die doing that. I'm not touching it.
I'm thinking of Christmas Vacation.
I'm calling
Chevy
a pro
Chase,
for that one, and I'll pay the fee.
Yeah, electricity and garage doors. You don't mess with the springs. I've learned quite a few times trying to fix my own. So,
well, hey, the real thing about that phrase, it never gets finished. It's a jack of all trades, is a master of none, but oftentimes is better than a master of one. So
I like that.
There's that.
Yeah,
I heard that recently.
Yeah.
So
Rob, I gotta say, man, like your mind works so much like mine. It's kind of scary. It's almost like I'm looking in a mirror mentally. Like I have a Wisdom Wednesday. I have a Financial Friday for my articles I write on Twitter. And man, I appreciate you, man. You it's great to hear all these thoughts come out loud, and like I'm not the only one, so I can see why your channel does so well.
Well, thank you. Yeah, just trying to pass along. Again, I feel unworthy. I am grateful for the opportunity to be able to pass along some stuff to people. Yeah, in my own way. Everybody's got their own niche. People are, you know, deliver it differently. They're going to reach a different audience than me.
Yeah, for sure. And God was good to Brandon and I. We have an amazing father. He's our best friend. But my father had an absolutely horrible upbringing. And I got to see the changes he made generationally. And I guess that brings me to my next question for you is, how do you think you approached fatherhood differently based off of your upbringing and the things you went through?
Yeah, I think definitely. So, and I've shared this before. When I was 14, as the best a 14-year-old could, I I vowed that if I ever had the opportunity, I'd never do that, and I'd do it differently. You know, it's easy to say that as a 14-year-old. It's much harder to live it. You know, life gets in the way. You get stuck in traffic, and you have a bad day at work and stuff. It's, you know, it's a little bit harder to actually live it out. But I did vow to do that. And thankfully, right before my daughter was born was when God got a hold of me, because prior to that, I was a bit of a rebel. I was raised in the Catholic Church, and then I didn't feel like there was enough good answers for me. And I was just told you had to believe it, because that's what we believe. I was like, well, you know, that's not going to help me when I go to the university and people are asking questions. That's not good enough. I need to be able to have a reasonable faith so I can have answers, you know, that satisfy me. I'm not going to know everything, but I need enough answers to where I feel like, okay, I believe. And for me, a big part was the resurrection. You know, if Jesus didn't raise, we're of all men most to be pitied. If he is risen, that changes everything, right? And so it all hinges on that. I think we can get so caught up in so many different things about Christianity, trying to defend Christianity compared to all the different things, and abortion and all these different things. Well, you know, prove to me that the resurrection didn't happen. I think there's enough evidence to show that it did happen, and that has ramifications that are huge. And so having that, but anyway, so I became a believer right before my daughter was born, and that I'm grateful for that, because I would have probably misled my kids, unfortunately, in a lot of different ways, I think. And so we started out when the kids were little, praying every night. You know, we would pray together. And as a dad, praying, I'm confessing to my Heavenly Father that I don't have it all together. And so my kids are getting to see that firsthand, that, Lord, I'm just trying to do the best that I can. And my kids, you know, and so I think it's important, again, forgiveness and helping my kids understand, hey, I'm not perfect. We're not perfect. We're just doing the best we can. And God's given you us for a window of time, and we want to, you know, equip you to be the best adults you could be. I talk about that a lot. You know, we didn't want to raise good kids. We wanted to raise good adults. And the sad part about raising good adults is they move across the country. So, because they're not living in your basement anymore. So yeah, my son lives in Virginia. I miss him every day, but, and then my daughter has been in Tennessee, in Knoxville for a time, and she came back, and then she went to New York, and now she's coming back again, her and her husband. So anyway, when you train them too good, they feel like they can move anywhere.
They're too independent. You did too good. All right, well, we'll take that word of caution. Maybe we can teeter the line a little bit better, because ours is still relatively young.
Maybe hold back on some of the training so that they have to live in your house.
I like that. Yeah. So Rob, you made such a great point. I wanted to talk about real quick. As fathers, it's so hard to admit that we're wrong to our children. Our egos get in the way. We don't want to say that we made a mistake, but what a beautiful opportunity with prayer to talk to God and say, God, I made some mistakes today. I want to apologize for that. Let's talk about that. And then your children get to hear you talk to God, and it takes the ego out of it. There's no, you know, I'm having to apologize to someone I'm not comfortable with. No one is great as great as God is. And so to be able to get down on our knees together and apologize and pray together, that teaches our kids a lot of humility. And that's a wonderful opportunity. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was huge, because I think if you don't help your kids understand that you're not perfect, they're going to find out. You may as well get ahead of it. So, because they're gonna find out when they're about 12 that dad maybe doesn't know as much as he tried to pretend he knew. So for me, that was kind of a big thing. I thought, man, because I think if you, and it did in me a little bit, the rebellion part, where if you don't have good answers, you just kind of rebel. Well, you know what? That's not good enough for me. I'm going to go do what I want to do.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a military thing, task and purpose. But, you know, when you give instruction, you don't just give the task, you explain the purpose, right? We need to seize the objective so that we can drive through, right? But if you take that and apply it to parenting, you're also teaching your kids critical thinking, right? Because then they understand, oh, there is purpose behind what we're doing. Honey, you need to do it this way so that you don't break your foot. Or, you know what I mean? Like so I try to do that, but it is also, you got to, depending on their age, you've got to be a little creative with how much, purpose explanation you give, but that is a great point that
Yeah,
you can't just rest on your authority, right? That's not compassionate. That's not instilling trust in you in the future, right? If it's just, well, do it because I said so, no one wants to work for or be with someone like that.
Right. I mean, there are certain times where you might disagree, and this is my house. We're going to do it this way, whether you disagree with me or not. But I think it is helpful, and my daughter kept me on on task with that. Is always asking why, Dad? Okay, I guess I got to explain why I'm doing it this way. So,
well, I think the greatest thing you're mentioning how you're teaching them something, or you apologize. You're sorry, I'm trying to think here.
That's hard for Brandon.
No, yeah, my brain's all over the place. I apologize. We'll edit this out, but give me just a second here.
Now we're leaving it in just because you said we're going to cut it.
Yeah, no.
Was that your brother? Because I have brothers. So
yeah. Well,
no slack, no slack from brothers.
Dive it a little bit.
0. Go in every time.
I'm sorry. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. I'm done. So,
no worries.
We'll just
so
cut it out.
Given your experience, Rob, and then now your kids are grown, in hindsight, looking back, what are 2 or 3 things that you wish someone would have told you as a young dad when you still had the time, with them in the home, that it took you maybe longer to figure those things out that you would have liked to have learned quicker?
Yeah, there's some regrets that I have with Little League and getting caught up in the politics myself and trying to, it was so political. I just look back and I cringe. I feel bad because my son, and he's shared this with me as he got older, that he just wanted to make me proud, even though I told him, Kyle, if this isn't something you want to do, I don't want you to feel like we have to force it, even though I did that to him, he still didn't want to be a quitter or didn't want to, and so I wish I would have handled that a little bit differently. I wish I would have, figured out a different way to communicate to him that, hey, I still love you and I'm still proud of you if you walk away from this, because there was just so much, and maybe I wish he would have golfed instead of playing baseball, because playing baseball, you have to rely on a coach to decide when you're going to play. If you golf and you got the best score, you got to play me. Even if you hate me, coach, I'm the best golfer out here, So I think a single sport, tennis, something like that, I probably would have steered my kids more towards something like that.
That was my experience with tennis. I was told by my coach my freshman year, you're probably not good enough. I don't think this is going to work out. And I beat enough players to get into the level and played varsity my freshman year. So that would not have happened in baseball. I would have said, you're not there. But the single sport gave me that opportunity. So I did. I enjoyed that a lot.
What a legend.
In my own mind, of course. Yeah.
Well,
no,
you did.
Awesome.
You were a pro for
great.
a little bit. You got pro points, right? So
yeah, I am a professional tennis player. Yeah.
I've seen you for a
Very
big,
cool.
strong guy, and as tall as you are, you play very, very well.
Thank you.
I will say that.
Yeah.
There
But it
was
is
this Brandon. Is he upset about us?
He's
You're
crying in the
smart on it,
corner.
Justin.
he's probably got the kids right behind him,
This is
causing
what
a
he
whirlwind.
does, man.
Yeah.
No.
That's the nice thing about the panel is we don't always have all 4 of us. Sometimes, just the 2 or 3 of us, and we all kind of back each other up. So it works out well.
Absolutely.
Brandon's back.
Brandon, you done pouting, buddy? He's like,
Did you have a question, Brandon? Okay, we're good.
it's like I'm out.
We can keep moving.
Yeah.
So Rob, what do you think? Now that you're on the other end of it too, what do you see that most fathers are failing to do in our society today that you wish you would see more of?
Well, I mean, present fathers. I think that's a big thing. I think a lot of people, and I think there's one thing I've really come to understand, and this happened to me too when I started to get into golf a little bit. When my kids were younger, a guy at work was getting me into golf, and then I went and golfed, and I was there for 5 hours on a Saturday, and I was like, I'm not doing this again. I need to be with my family. My family needs me. I can't come out here and golf. And so you can tell by my golf game that I'm not a very good golfer, but I also give myself grace when I go golfing now, because it's like, you know what? I could be a great golfer, but I wouldn't be good at anything else. My life would be falling apart, but boy, all for that, sub 80 score. What sacrifices you make. And I think it's so important to have balance in your life and recognize what you're really supposed to do as a father, what you're called to do. You can go play golf, just don't let it, take away from the more important things, or work. Work is you need it, you need money, but you got to also keep it in perspective so that you don't take time away from those kids, because those kids are going to be there for such a short window. It's a blink of an eye. My daughter's 31 and my son's 28. I remember 28. 28 was yesterday for me. So it happens quick.
Yeah, and just real quick, so golf is definitely a game if you want to teach your kids about failure. Play that game. It is extremely challenging. I don't care how athletic somebody is. I've never just seen someone walk onto a golf course and be a natural. I'll put it that way. Other sports, people can walk up, kill it. That's a sport that takes patience. It takes focus. It takes, all your physical energy.
That's why I don't play it.
Yeah, it takes your mental energy as well. And it's a beautiful sport. And you said the word perfectly, 80s. Sub 80s is the hardest thing to do in the world. You can have the best round of your life and you get 2 or 3 putts on one hole, done, you're out, and it's so frustrating, but it's beautiful, because when you do finally achieve those goals, it's great. But yeah, I would say if kids are out there, or dads, if you're out there looking for a sport to put your kids in that you want to teach them patience, discipline, and failure, that's a great one. And him and Rob talking about that kind of brings that up. I mean, you want your kids to be involved, especially if you're going to spend that kind of time somewhere. Yeah, it is a very time-consuming game, but it can be very rewarding as well. So just my 2 cents on it. I can't wait for my son personally to play, and my father-in-law is excited about it as well. So we're golfers. So
you're gonna jinx yourself, man. He's gonna grow up and hate golf.
He can be a chess player. I mean, whatever.
Dude, they're gonna do what they want to do, man.
Yeah, I mean, he can.
But I'm sure my parents were like, "What the heck?" When I was like, "I want to do Taekwondo," and they're like, "What?" And I was just like, out of the blue, I woke up one day and I'm like, I'm doing it. And I really did it. That's like all we did. So I'm sure, yeah. I hope your son likes the same things as you.
Golf is tough, like you said, but anybody can play tennis. So just kidding.
Anybody can play pickleball.
Just kidding. I'm not a very good tennis player. So
well, and I've transitioned to pickleball as we've gotten older. It's a little bit less time consuming, and everyone's really into it. So it's been a lot of fun. I never thought I'd be a pickleball player, 10 years ago. I'd have made fun of that guy, but it's different seasons in your life, you have different activities you do. So it's a lot of fun.
It is.
So Rob,
I
it's super fun, and it's easier to learn. Yeah, golf, tennis, it's 6 months before you can even, play a decent round. And with pickleball, you can just jump right in and start playing. So I had a single mom growing up. So I've always had, kind of a soft spot for kids who don't have dads around. Is there any part of your channel where you're specifically kind of talking to moms or to families that don't have a dad around? Is that something that you think about when you're putting your channel together?
I was pigeonholed early on that my channel was for young men. And people were saying, oh, he's made this channel for young men. And obviously tying a tie, that's for a young man, shaving, that's for a young man. But it's also for single moms too, to show and I've had people write me letters, women write me and say, I'm so grateful you showed my son how to shave, and because he was embarrassed, he didn't know how to shave. And we watched your video together. He went in the bathroom by himself, had your video on. I waited outside and he watched you do it again and kind of walked you through it. Cause I try to do things in real time. And I also try to do it where it's, I'm not cutting out stupid mistakes that I make too, because I think you need to kind of leave those in where, I forgot about that. Like when I did my shower head video and I spilled water on myself, I forgot that there was still water in the whoops. But so I think it is helpful to kind of have that stuff in for people. So my channel is for anybody and everybody. I hope I don't try to, but the difficult thing is there are certain things where I would like to speak to a young man, and I would like to speak to a young woman. And so trying to figure out the best way to do that, I don't know. Still trying to figure that out. I plan on continuing my content as long as I feel like I'm putting up good content for people, that is useful. I see, and I've had people say, "Oh, you should be posting every day. You should post every day to keep the algorithm going." And you know what? I'm not going to have the tail wag the dog. I'm close. We're right around retirement age. I want to provide useful content. I don't want to feel like a clown that, okay, I gotta put up something today. So what am I going to say? Just say something, just to put up something. I don't want it to be like that. I want it to be useful content, and I want it to be for anybody and everybody that could use some help.
I love that. It's like when you have to prove that you're human to a computer. I'm like offended by that. Like, how dare you ask me? And same thing. I'm not going to be a rodeo clown for an algorithm. You have to. And it sounds like you followed your own rules, and it's worked really well for you. Anytime you take someone else's advice and try to be something you're not, it won't work. Rob, do you think if the pandemic hadn't happened, do you think your channel would have happened? I know you can't obviously tell the future, but I'm curious if that was really the catalyst that made it happen, or if it would have happened regardless.
Yeah, I think a lot of variables happened with that kind of caused it maybe to blow up. People got wind of my background, my backstory. People were locked up too and had a little more time. And we were hearing from celebrities. We were hearing from people who we couldn't relate to tell us it was going to be okay when their refrigerators are stocked and they got nothing to worry about. So I think it was helpful having the pandemic. I think, sadly, the pandemic sucked, but grateful that this was produced out of it. So, and it's interesting too. Again, God's sense of humor through this whole thing. I've done 1,000,001 interviews over Zoom or over these different venues. And so it helped me to get my feet underneath me when I actually had to go to a live interview, I was heading to, again, as an introvert and avoiding speeches my whole life. I was in sales, and I was a master of only, avoiding big, speaking engagements. I would speak in front of 2 or 3 people because I had to with my job, but it terrified me having to speak in front of 40 people. And then when I was driving to New Day Northwest, the local channel, and I was going to go in studio and sit down and be interviewed. Yikes, that was pretty scary. But because of the pandemic, I got my feet underneath me by just doing these things over and over again, to where I was on Hoda and Jenna around Father's Day, and it was a little scary. A couple of years ago, it would have been way more scary. I might have ran. It might have been fight or flight, and I might have flew. So, but I was able to kind of have some, good talks with myself and hang in there.
Yeah. And you've already spoken to millions of people on your channel. So, but it's not obviously the same as when they're really live in person. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. It's a little more intimidating when you have Hoda asking you questions.
I'll bet. Yeah.
It's a little surreal. And Lester Holt, and I've had all kinds of different. I mean, Lester Holt wasn't live, but still having these people that you're, household names actually talking to you is a little strange.
Definitely. Wow. Just out of curiosity, do you have like a favorite video or episode of yours, or whatever you want to call them, that you've done that just really sticks out to you, that you enjoyed the most, or has like a memory attached to it or something like that?
Yeah, I like the How to Tie a Tie just because it was the first one. Maybe that's an easy out, but it really, it was the first one, and it got such great, kind of put me on the map, so to speak. I think that was the one that kind of resonated with people.
Yeah, and that's that was one of the hardest things to learn in my pubescent years, was trying to tie that in a bow tie. Man, I still have to look at YouTube every time I tie a bow tie.
So I've had people say I need to show how to tie a bow tie, and I said, this is practical dad advice. A bow tie is not practical.
True.
I'm kidding. You, if you like bow ties,
bow tie guys. Yeah, we apologize if we offended you.
You just lost like 2 million subscribers.
Justin has left. Justin has left the channel.
I have to bite my tongue sometimes because I'm like, I can't say that.
that was part of my medical training. I was almost 30 years old. I did not know how to tie a tie. And our professor came in and said, this is part of, being in medicine, you have to know how to do this. And so I went to a YouTube video. It was not you. This was before you got big, but it was from YouTube that I learned how to tie a tie. And so I have very good memories from that as well. Without that, I don't know if I would have gotten through my medical training. So it is a really important thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So all you guys wear bow ties? Is that what you said? Are you guys bow ties?
We need to. We're going to do an episode now where we all wear bow ties.
Well, now we have to. Now we have to. We can do it for our next for our New Year's episode. So we all wore suits for our New Year's episode, and we did an annual review. We stole that idea from Sahil Bloom, but you basically look at the year. It's actually a really great thing. You look at the year in review, figure out what you, instead of doing like a New Year's resolution, you kind of commend what you did well, double down on those things this coming year. And anyway, so we'll have to now remember you and get bow ties and go totally over the top for our next New Year's episode. But
absolutely,
I do wear a bow tie in uniform. When you wear your blues, you got to put your bow tie on, but that's. I do not do the self-tie one. I get the pre-made one that comes with the uniform that has a little click. And,
That's
2 seconds.
That's the easy way out. That's the lazy way.
So
hey, brother, the Army's all about efficiency when you can, So
the ultimate person to learn how to tie bow tie from would be Alton Brown. He's the famous chef guy. He teaches people how to tie bow ties because that's all he wears, and so he's on a lot of channels, and he does his. Other than just teaching like extremely good science behind cooking, he'll also teach you how to tie bow ties.
There we go. Now everyone needs a bow tie. They can go to that channel. But for everything else, you can go to Rob.
There you go.
So Rob, what do you want to talk about your book a little bit and officially plug it? And I think I've got it pulled up. It's on HarperCollins, right? Is that the right place to get it?
It is, yeah. William Morrow, the division of HarperCollins. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
All right.
As well.
So I'm pulling it up. There we go. That's it right there, right?
Right. Yep. So,
alrighty.
So it tells a little bit about my backstory, and then there are some nuggets at the back too. I have 58 how-tos because I was told to do 50, and I thought I'm going to put in 8 more. That way, if people have a problem, that wasn't helpful. Okay, well, there's 8 more. There's some bonus ones for you. So, because people always find something, and I even did. The books of the Bible and kind of walk through the books of the Bible. So again, well, if that didn't help you because that you're not a believer or what have you, then you can fill in with one of the other 8. So anyway, yeah, that's it. It tells kind of my backstory and I walk you through my siblings, and I pick one character trait from each sibling that I think is helpful for people. And so I talk about my sister Mary, and I talk about family, the importance of family. And then I talk about my brother Tim. I talk about the importance of having a backbone, because you don't want to be a milquetoast. It's important to stand up for yourself when you need to. And then I talk about a work ethic with my brother Rick, the importance of having a good work ethic. And I talk about being an encourager with my sister Lori. And then my brother Joe, I talk about not hesitating. You need to, people get paralyzed, analysis paralysis, and don't ever make a move, and they have all these ideas and they never do anything. And then meanwhile, their life passes them by and they never jumped in and actually did something. And then my brother Don, I talk about being generous, the importance of generosity. So I just kind of walk through that.
I love that how you tied it to all the different your siblings, and it's more than just advice. It's very, personalized. That's a pretty cool way of doing it.
Yeah. At my 50th birthday party, I shared that. I went around and shared basically what is shared in my book. I talked about, because we had to rely on each other. That was the reality of our lives. I had to learn a lot of things from my siblings. So it got a little awkward because my dad was there for my 50th birthday. And I wasn't trying to slight him. I was just trying to honor my siblings. And so it did get a little weird.
Well, sometimes those things are earned, and it's not necessarily being cruel. It's just the reality of the situation. So,
what made it more awkward is my sister Mary ended up saying, "And do you have anything to say about Dad?" Like,
No, I don't actually.
I just want to keep it about the siblings. So,
right.
Yeah, she felt horrible lately.
So within
Wasn't
teaching
trying
you
to
all the
call
values and lessons throughout your life, what was one of the most important ones that your siblings taught you?
I'd say the family thing was such a big thing because I was ready to jettison. Really, I was kind of like I just wanted to kind of move away and kind of do my own thing because I just was so fed up with things. And my sister Mary I share that in my book. My sister kept writing me postcards and stuff, and like, okay, somebody actually does care whether I'm around or not. Because I was gonna join the military. I'd talked about joining the Navy and going on a ship somewhere just to kind of get away and process things. So I think that was huge. I mean, it's hard to boil it down to any one thing. I think a big part was I always felt kind of accountable to them. If I was a single kid and things happened, I might have just done whatever, but I always felt like I was kind of accountable to somebody.
I love that you had that sense of belonging with your siblings.
Right.
Made you all a tight-knit group. Question about fatherhood, and it's what is kind of the funniest or craziest story you had where either your kids did something or you were with them, and just a fun dad story with the kids and the whole family, whatever, something along those lines.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how I could narrow it down to one thing. The first thing that popped in my mind, this is kind of a little strange, but I used to get up, again, speaking of spending time with my family, I used to get up early to work out because I wanted to stay in shape, and I'd get up super early. And this was back when I had hair, and I used to go in the garage to work out. And I was in there working out, and it was in the morning, so I didn't care. My hair was kind of flying again when I had hair. So I came in from the garage, and my daughter's bedroom was right there. And she looked at me and she goes, "Is it windy?" My hair was flying. She thought I was outside getting blown around. So
did you have it down like to your shoulders or something, or was it just got all, it was like bedhead kind of stuck up?
It was pretty long, but it was, yeah. Yeah, because I didn't care. I was in my garage working out, so it didn't matter. I didn't think anybody's going to see me. But then when I came in, she put two and two together and figured I was out in the wind.
That's amazing.
You gotta love how kids kind of interpret things and kind of add their own flair to it and everything. And for us, that's such a leap. Is it windy outside? Yeah, there's those little moments like that are always just amazing.
There's a funny little league story too of my son. He was, again, there are a lot of politics and stuff, and he finally hit a home run, and we were it was in the playoffs too, and he hit a home run, and he was so excited about it that and then he's in the dugout after he hit his home run, and then there's only there's two outs, or there's one out, then there's an out made. My son comes running out thinking, because he couldn't wait to see me, and he's running on the field, and there's only two outs. He needs to get back in the dugout. So that was kind of
I did my part. I hit my home run. We're done.
Moment of hitting the home run. Right, that's all that mattered. He hit his home run. He couldn't wait to get out and have people applaud him or something. I don't know. It's sad because it kind of took away from this cool moment where he hit this home run.
That's funny. Rob, where can everyone find you who's not already subscribed?
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel called DadHowDoI, and then I have my my Facebook is DadHowDoI, and my Instagram is DadHowDoI, and I'm also on TikTok at the real DadHowDoI because somebody was pretending to be me, so I had to change names for that. Otherwise, it's just DadHowDoI, and you can find it pretty much anywhere. And I came up with that name. We didn't share that. I came up with that name because I pictured one of my kids in the other room saying, "Dad, how do I?" That's where we came up with it.
All righty. Well, Rob, it was a true pleasure to speak with you. I think your authenticity is just so refreshing. And we appreciate your wisdom here on the podcast with our listeners and with us. And for everyone listening and watching, go subscribe if you're not already subscribed to his channel. Lots of great stuff, and like you were saying, not just advice, it's also a lot of heartfelt kind of wisdom and things like that. So just great channel, really good one to have in your back pocket. And, like Dustin, when you need to learn how to do basic things that men need to know how to do, you can correct yourself. So, Rob, do you have any closing thoughts for the audience?
No, I appreciate what you guys are doing because dads are so important, and I think being a dad is a cool thing. It's a gift, and it's such an opportunity to be able to pour into the next generation. So keep on keeping on. It's so important, and we need to help get rid of the whole Al Bundy, Homer Simpson stereotype of a dad where we're a bunch of buffoons. We're needed. We're important, and we need to encourage each other.
Amen.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that. That's so important. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob. It's been a real pleasure. You've got 4 new fans right here, and probably all the wives too. But just really appreciate you coming on and just being so open with us. And
cool. Thank you.
I hope that God continues to keep using you and reaching others and helping those who didn't have a father figure around to figure out a lot of things. It's just a beautiful way to connect with people. All right. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Enough talk, dads. Let's get climbing. We'll catch you around. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Present Fathers Podcast. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify to catch all of our amazing episodes. We will see you in the next one.